I like got the kids out of the car as fast as I could and ran in the house. And at that time, my daughter had a monitor that was hooked up to the Wi-Fi, and so I would get notifications on my phone from her monitor. Well, that same night, I kept getting notifications that there was movement in her room, and there was nobody in her room. Everybody was in the living room. Everybody was with me. And I kept, like, over and over and over, I was getting notifications that there was movement on her camera. And I, like, lost it.
I was sitting in sacrament meeting one Sunday and I heard the words I'd heard 1,000 times before, that we promise to always remember him. And I thought, how do I always remember when life is so loud? Kids, work, noise, everything that's pulling at me. And that is the moment that Memoir started, because I know what it's like to need a physical reminder. Years ago, I was in the hardest season of my life and I found a pink Bible with a bookmark inside of it. And God used that simple, tangible thing to reach me when I needed him the most. And I believe that he still does that. He still speaks through what we can hold in our hands. Memoir jewelry is that reminder. Necklaces, rings, stuff for guys, stuff for women, stuff for kids, made for anyone who wants to carry their faith with them. Every piece is built around one truth, that it is never too late and no one is too far gone to come back to Christ. So you can go to memoirjewelry.com and use code COMEBACK for 10% off. Okay, Rachel, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. I connected with you online. You posted about your Memoir necklace, and like I was just like, oh my gosh, I love her so much. And
I
then
love it. I'm wearing it right now, so.
yes, and it looks perfect. You got a stack going on, and I love
I
it
do.
so much. It's perfect.
Thank you.
But yeah, I connected with you on Instagram, and then I saw that you had a comeback story, and I just was like, yes, like we need to have you on the podcast. So thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your story.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. So tell us a little bit about you, like where you live, like just a little bit of background about you before we jump in.
Okay, so I was born and raised in a somewhat small town in the Four Corners. I'm from Farmington, New Mexico, so northern New Mexico. I am 25. I have two little babies. I have a boy and a girl. I was raised in the church. I was baptized at 8. I had a pretty normal upbringing, so that's just a little bit about me.
So are you in New Mexico now, or are you in?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I still live in Farmington.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump into your story.
So, like I said, I mean, I grew up in the church. I was raised by my parents. They were both members of the church. My parents were never still in the temple, so I was not born like into the covenant, as they say, but I was raised in the church. I was baptized at 8. I was the baby of 4 siblings growing up. When I was 10, my parents actually ended up getting divorced. And so that kind of, I think our activity in the church kind of started to go down at that point. I think mostly because both my parents just worked so much. My mom worked for our local hospital and my dad was a cop, and so they were busy all of the time. So me and my older sister, she would take me to church a lot. A lot of times it was just the two of us going to church together. I have always struggled with mental health issues. I've been diagnosed with depression since I was probably 12 or 13. Not long after my parents got divorced, I think, is when everybody really started to notice the shift in my personality. So they caught it very early, which was good for me because I was able to get help very early. When I was 15, though, I tried to harm myself, which was a very hard time in everybody's life, my whole family's life. That was very eye-opening to me to see how much everybody actually cared about me going through that transition, that hard time. So that really opened my eyes. When I was thinking back about everything, I think I realized that my drive to go to church and my desire to be there, I really think started to drop off when I was probably like 12 or 13. Like I didn't care to go to church. I would go just to go, but I was only there just to be there. Like, I wasn't really getting anything out of it as early as like 12 or 13. I only remember ever going on like 2 temple trips as a kid. And we had to call them temple trips because our closest temple was 3 hours away in Albuquerque. So we had to make a drive to get
It
to the
was a
temple.
trip.
So we called them temple trips. But then I only remember going on like maybe 2 or 3. Like I just didn't have that desire. And I did start to get a little bit more active for a while, but high school is awful, as most girls know. And I remember being so almost bitter about the fact that I would see girls, even guys, just people that I went to church with, seeing them one way on Sundays and like preaching the gospel and acting one way on Sundays, and then see them at church the next day and they're a completely different person. I had a very hard time with that when I was in high school. And looking back now, obviously, I'm like, I don't know what their relationship with God was like. I couldn't have judged them. I shouldn't have judged them. But back then, I obviously didn't realize that. I just saw like these people are being fake. They are putting on a show. And I had a really hard time with that. And then by time I was 17, I found myself in a really, really unhealthy relationship with somebody that was not very nice to me at all. I was still in high school, and that was a very early time to find yourself in a relationship like that. But I really took everything that he told me to heart. And whether it was about myself or my family or anything, he was very good at making me internalize the things that he would say to me. And he was a very big atheist. And so he did not like the fact that I went to church with my family. He did not like the fact that my family was Mormon. His family was Catholic, but he would even make fun of them because he thought we were all crazy for believing in God regardless. And so I think within the 2 years that I was in that relationship, I really started to internalize like that point of view also. Probably about halfway through, I got to a point where I was like, I just don't really believe in anything. Like it just, I can't believe that there's any special power out there taking care of me. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. And I kind of stuck in that mindset for a while. After I broke up with him, finally, I jumped right into another relationship without any type of healing. I still have to heal from that relationship, and that was almost 10 years ago. But I just jumped right into another relationship with someone that I barely knew, but he was also a very big atheist. And so I was just, at that point, it didn't really faze me because I had already gotten to a point where I was like, like it's whatever. That's not a deal breaker for me. And within like, I think 2 months, I ended up pregnant with my son. And I was really happy. Like I thought we were going to get married and we were going to live a happy life and raise our son. And we ended up breaking up when I was about 6 months pregnant.
Oh.
And he has completely disappeared. He has nothing to do with my son, which I should have seen coming. But again, I was only 19 years old. I was young and dumb. I've raised my son pretty much myself for the last 5 years. I did meet somebody else, another complete atheist, when I was I think I was 20, and I actually ended up marrying. And so he took my son in for a while. He was a dad to my son. And we actually ended up having a little girl, my daughter. And we were really happy for a while. We had a good 2 years that we were really, really happy. We moved to Carlsbad. I had never been outside of New Mexico, really. Like, I am not a well-traveled person. And so even moving to Carlsbad, it was still New Mexico, but it was 8 hours away from my family and everything I knew. And I tried really hard. I loved it there. The weather was always so nice there, and we had a beautiful house there. And I got a really cool job that they actually kind of like sought me out. And so that was a really cool experience for me. My son was about 2.5, and then my daughter was a newborn. And I realized very quickly how important being around family was when you were working. And so I finally had to tell my daughter's dad, like, I can't do this. I need to be with family. I need a support system. So I ended up kind of telling him, like, you can stay or you can move back too, but I have to go back. And so I moved back by myself. I moved in with my mom. And I was staying with her for a while, just trying to get my feet underneath me. I already had a job here when I moved back. I had already interviewed for a job and was hired when I moved back. So I jumped right into a new job here. Things were good for a while. We kind of made it work. He would come up every couple of weekends and see us and then drive back to Carlsbad. We got married in 22, and then in 25, I just kind of realized I was not happy anymore. We ended up getting divorced. It was, in my opinion, it was a very amicable divorce. We get along very well. We co-parent very well with our daughter. Within probably 2 to 3 weeks of us getting divorced, I went to my doctor. I had been on antidepressants for a very long time at this point, but I switched to a new doctor. And so I just went to him to be like, hey, could you write me new prescriptions? Like, I can't fill the old doctor's prescriptions. And so he just kind of talked to me and was like, well, like, why have you been on him so long? And I just kind of explained to him, like, I've always just been a really depressed person. I've always been a very anxious person. And I had kind of mentioned to him some things about like my impulsivity, and I've always been a very impulsive person. Um, my emotions are all over the place. I go from 0 to 100 very easily. And he felt that I would do really well with a mood stabilizer, which I had never been on a mood stabilizer before. So that was very new. And I decided to try it because I was like, you know, what can it hurt? Within 3 to 4 days of taking that mood stabilizer, I started to feel very dark and just like I was anxious. I was overwhelmed. Like I was just kind of like, I do not feel right. And I actually remember I walked out of my house one day when it was dark outside, and I walked out to my car. And as I was walking back inside, I got onto my porch, and I remember like physically feeling like I had been hit with something, and there was nothing there. Like I remember like a physical feeling of like, what the heck was that? And I just kind of like brushed it off and went inside and went about my day. I could not sleep that night. I woke up the next day. I was irritable. I was tired because I hadn't slept any. I couldn't really eat anything. Like I just kind of felt sick. And I went to work and it didn't go away all day. And so I was like, what is going on? Like, this is really weird. And that like dark feeling just really kept progressing. Like it just kept getting worse and worse. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't even want to be at home. Like I don't feel safe. I feel like there is something in my house and I do not want to be home. I would go to work as early as I could and I would stay at work all day, and then I would pick my kids up from daycare. I would avoid my house as much as possible. I was not home on the weekends. I would be at my dad's house or with my mom. Like I was not at home because I just did not feel safe. I felt like I was being watched almost in my house, and it made me extremely uncomfortable. So I had not gone home until it was probably 7 or 7:30, so it was pretty dark already. And as I was turning into my driveway, we had like a shed that sat in the driveway, and then the house was like probably 6 to 7 feet from the shed. And as I like turned into the driveway, I could have sworn that I saw something standing in my driveway between the shed and the house. And so I was already like, oh my gosh, like I was already freaked out that night. I was already on edge because I had sworn I had seen something in the driveway. And obviously this whole time I'm like, I am feeling crazy. Like, what is wrong with me? I felt insane, truly. I like got the kids out of the car as fast as I could and like ran in the house. And at that time, my daughter had a monitor that was hooked up to the Wi-Fi. And so I would get notifications on my phone from her monitor. Well, that same night, I kept getting notifications that there was movement in her room, and there was nobody in her room. Everybody was in the living room. Everybody was with me. And I kept like over and over and over, I was getting notifications that there was movement on her camera. And I like lost it. I started like sobbing, and I was living with my mom at the time. And I told her, like, I am not safe. Like, there is something going on, and I am not okay. I feel terrified. I feel anxious. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Like, I don't know what is going on. And I told her, like, I cannot stay here. I cannot stay here. And so I texted my dad, and I had been at his house before I left. And I texted him and was like, can I come back and stay the night at your house? Like, I cannot stay here tonight. And he was like, I mean, that's fine, I guess. And so I packed the kids up and I bring them back, and we stayed the night at my dad's house. And I was like, maybe I'll feel safer at my dad's house. By this point, my dad was very, very active in the church. And so I was like, maybe I'll feel safer at my dad's house. And so I come and I get the kids to sleep, and I still could not sleep. And I remember that night laying in bed at even my dad's house, I like physically, my chest physically felt like I was being held down by something. And I remember thinking, like, this is not in my head. Like, this is physical. Like, I can physically feel something touching me. And that really freaked me out. And so I went to work the next day, and I was like, I was sitting in my parking lot at work before I had gone into work. And I remember looking up, like, how can you tell if a demon has attached to you, or like something along those lines. And I was like looking through, it was a huge like Reddit chain of some like paranormal group and people saying like, if you tell it to like go away in the name of Jesus, it will, but you have to believe what you're saying. And I was like, well, crap, like, I'm not going to believe what I'm saying. And like, they're going to be able to tell that I don't believe in what I'm saying. And so I think that was my first kind of like wake up call of like, oh crap, I'm in a really crappy situation, and I don't know what to do. And for the most part, I had been okay if I wasn't at home. I could go to work and I could focus and do what I needed to do. I just felt this absolute dread of going home. And so that day I went into work and I was sitting at my desk, and I just felt like something was like standing over my shoulder, and I just freaked out. And I went to one of my poor coworkers and was like, do you believe in demons? And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, like, I am not okay. Like, something is going on and I am not okay. And I was like, I need help. I don't know what to do. I don't remember why, but when I was younger, my dad was never able to give us blessings. It was always my uncle that would give us blessings. And so when I was in this state of like, I need help, like something is wrong, my brain immediately went to my Uncle Wyatt. And I was like, I need to see if he can give me a blessing. So I reached out to my cousin and I was like, hey, so like, what do you think your dad would say if someone asked him for a blessing because they felt like they were like attached to a demon? And I remember growing up, like, I didn't really think that Mormons believed in demons. Like, I feel like we believed in like evil spirits, but I don't know that we ever really called them demons per se. And so I just felt kind of crazy even asking, like, would he think I'm crazy or would he be willing to? And of course, my cousin was like, he would do that 100%. Like, he does not think you're crazy. And so I got in touch with my uncle. This was after about 2 weeks of feeling this dark feeling every single day, and 2 weeks of not sleeping, not eating. Like, it was really bad. And so I finally went to his house. He gave me a blessing. And that night, for the first time in 2 weeks, I slept like a rock. I slept so well. I woke up the next day and I ate a full 8-count nugget meal from Chick-fil-A. Like, I immediately felt the effects of the blessing. And that alone was enough for me to be like, okay, obviously there's something there, because this is the first sense of peace I have felt in a good 2 weeks. And I think once I got that blessing is when my my brain started to kind of put together like, okay, I just started this new medication about 2.5 weeks ago. This has been going on for about 2 weeks. Like, maybe I need to stop taking this medication. And so I did. I cut off the medication. And so I'm like, I do attribute a lot of it to probably like hallucination side effects of the medication. But I truly feel like the series of events that leaded up to it just wasn't coincidental. And I'm like, I feel like that was the push that I needed to change my life. And like, I feel like I had gotten way too comfortable verbally voicing that I did not believe in God. People would say like, oh, like we need to pray about things. And I would like roll my eyes and be like, oh yeah, okay. Like that's not going to do you any good. Go ahead. And I think I had just gotten way too comfortable voicing that. And so I'm like, as quickly as it happened at like the events leading up to it, I truly feel like that medication was God's way of like giving me a reality check. I finally talked to my dad and told him what was going on. I sent it to him in a text, and then the next time that I saw him in person, he was like, when you sent me that message, it gave me like full body chills because one night I had left their house, my dad and my stepmom. I had left their house, and when I walked out, my dad like looked at my stepmom and told her there is something wrong with her and it feels evil. And he didn't say anything to me, like he didn't mention anything to me. He told my stepmom that. And so when I told him what was going on and that I felt like I could not shake this like evil presence, my dad was like, holy crap. I knew that there was something wrong. And so we sat down and I had a like huge heart to heart with my dad. And my dad actually ended up giving me a second blessing. And I remember just telling him over and over again, like, I need to be saved. I need to be saved. Like, I can't live like this anymore. I need to be saved. And my dad's like, well, you were baptized when you were 8. That covenant doesn't just go away. Like, you just need to get back on track. And so I told him I was going to start going to church with him. And I did. I started going to church with him. And he is still in my home ward from when I was a baby, a kid. It's still the same church I was baptized in. It's pretty much all the same members. Like it's my home ward. And when I walked into church that first Sunday, I will never forget all of the faces of these people that watched me grow up. And like one in particular, I think he was our bishop when I got baptized. And I love him to pieces. He like looked at me and like kind of did a double take and his face just lit up. And he like looked at his wife and was like, oh my gosh, like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And I was like, that is crazy. And I had family in that ward that was like, what are you doing here? Like, I had been inactive for probably 11 years at this point. And I didn't realize it had been that long until I was talking to my dad and was like, I just want to feel this big, like, pillar of light moment. Like, I need something to tell me, like, yes, this is where you need to be. And my dad kind of had to give me a reality check of, like, you've turned your back on God for 11 years. It's going to take you a minute to get back on track. And I was like, I didn't even know it had been that long. Like, it was such a slow process. It wasn't like all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm done with the church. It was very gradual. And so I didn't realize how long it had been. And I walked in and it was just like I was home. It was like I had missed one Sunday and was back at church. And I still was kind of on the fence. I had been very active on the Ex-Mormon Reddit, and there was so much in my head that I was like, I don't know, maybe I just need to go back to a church, like not necessarily this church. And so probably 2 or 3 Sundays after that initial Sunday that I had gone back, I was in my car before I went in and I was just like, okay, if I need to be here, I need to know. Like I was praying, like I need to know. I need to know what I'm doing. I need to know if this is where I need to be. And I remember thinking, like, Praise to the Man had always been my favorite song. I loved that song since I was a kid. For whatever reason, I loved that song. And I remember thinking, like, if I can go into church today and if Praise to the Man is a song that we're singing, I will know. Like, that is my sign. And I go in, I sit down, I look at the like little number board to tell you what hymns you're singing that day. I'm looking and I'm like, oh, like, it's not on there. That's kind of unfortunate. But we happened to have a special musical number that day, which was played by someone in my family, actually. She's, I think, my second cousin. She's the pianist for our ward, and she was playing like a special musical number. And I don't remember what the main song was, but she was just kind of playing, and all of a sudden I hear her transition into Praise to the Man, and she's playing Praise to the Man.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, there is no way. And my dad kind of looks at me because he's like, I know you like this song. Like, this is your favorite song. And I am just like tearing up. Like, I am just like, oh my gosh, there is no way. There is no way this is happening right now. And I look back at my dad with like tears in my eyes. And I'm like, I have been waiting. I have been waiting for that. And I'm like, that is it. That is all I needed. And I actually printed out. So I messaged my cousin that played it like later that day. And I wanted to be able to read it verbatim because what she told me was incredible. So I told her, I had been thinking in my head, Heavenly Father, if I walk in there and hear Praise to the Man, I will know that this church is true and this is where I belong. And then you played it in your number and I cried. I am so grateful for you. And she said, are you kidding me? That is miraculous. What's amazing is that I tried to avoid that song. I have a testimony of Joseph Smith and the role he had in the restoration, but I have been trying to choose songs that focus more on Jesus. I made an exception that day, and apparently that exception was for you. And I
Oh
was,
my gosh.
oh
Chills.
my gosh. And she went up and bore her testimony that following Sunday and explained kind of this experience. And she was like, when I was trying to put that number together, I had been trying to find a song to like kind of segue into. And she was like, I could not find anything that worked except for Praise to the Man. Like, that is the one that she just
Oh
kept
my
going back
God.
to. And so I'm like sitting here and I'm like, what is like, that is insane to me. I was just so grateful. And I was like, that's it. Like, this is obviously where I need to be. And so from then on, I went to my ward. I tried to get to know the people in my ward. I had a great bishop in that ward, and I met with him and kind of told him, like, I've been inactive for the last like 11 years, and I know that I'm probably going to need to go through the whole repentance process and everything. And he looked at me and he was like, you kind of sound embarrassed that you've been inactive. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm embarrassed. Like, I've spent the last probably 3 to 4 years of my life consuming all this anti-Mormon, ex-Mormon content and like talking about how much the church traumatized me. And now I'm sitting here like, oh, just kidding. Like, I'm back. And he's like, would it make you feel better if I told you that I had also been inactive for a very long time? And now I'm sitting across from you as your bishop. And I was like, yeah, that would do a lot for me. And so that made me feel way more comfortable. I told my dad, like, I've been gone so long that I feel like I need to start as like a new member almost. I wanted to talk to missionaries and kind of take the lessons and really get back to the basics of the church because I was like, I don't remember much at all. And I met the most incredible sister missionaries ever. And I love them all to pieces. And I know all 4 of them are going to watch this. So
Shout out to the sisters.
those women changed my life. And one of them left. She went home probably 3 to 4 weeks after I started going to my ward. And I was like, it is not a coincidence that I started to come back to church and met her right before she went home. Like, she is so important to me. And that was not a coincidence. It was like we were long lost friends that had reconnected the first general conference that I watched in probably 11 years, they came to my house and they sat and watched the Saturday morning session with me. And I am beyond grateful for those relationships that I made. I am starting to realize, I know there's contradictory things in the church, but what makes me mad at myself is like, those problems were never problems of my own. I had kind of drifted away from the church just because I think I wanted to be a teenager. But I'd never had issues with like the seer stones or the treasure digging or like the polygamy. Like I knew of those things, but they never bothered me until I started looking at like anti-Mormon content. And I think that kind of made me like, oh, why is like that's a problem? I guess that's a problem. It's going to be a problem now. Like it never bothered me. I had just kind of drifted away. And then I started to look at this anti-harmful content, and that shifted how I felt about the church. Like I missed the community of the church for so long. And then it got to a point where I was like, I hate the church. Like people in the church are fake and lying. And I remember even thinking like, how could someone as smart as my dad believe something so obviously false? Like that was a very genuine thought in my head. Like how my dad is so smart. Like how is he falling for this?
And he also like went from being inactive to coming back and like choosing to come back.
And that's a really important thing to me is like this testimony that I've gained is mine. Like it is not my parents' testimony. I didn't have a real testimony when I was a kid. I don't think. I was just there because that's where my parents expected me to be. Our whole family is LDS and we have been forever, and that was normal to me. But I just like, I got on this high horse and was like, I'm smarter than all of them. Like I've figured it out and they haven't yet. And so it was like kind of embarrassing to be like, hey guys, like
I'm back.
I'm back. Wow. But one thing I forgot to mention is me and my sister both have a very vivid memory. And this goes to like the trauma of the church. Like I was very much like the church traumatized me, you know? And me and my sister both have a very vivid memory of right after my parents got divorced. I can remember we were standing in the young women's room in our church, the same one that I go to now because I'm in young women's. I'm an advisor in young women's and I'm in there almost every Sunday. And somebody told my sister and I that we did not get to go to heaven anymore because our parents had gotten divorced.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, how harmful to a 10 and 13 to 14-year-old at that time. And I'm like sitting here and we're like, why? Like we didn't do anything. And so that was really hard. Like our parents' divorce was really, really hard on us. And I always promised myself that my kids would never be kids of divorce. And here we are. But I'm like, I'm at a point now where I just cannot believe that God would not allow me or my children into the kingdom because of the choices that our parents made. Like I did not make my parents' choices and my kids did not make my choices. Like that is,
and that's just like that comment is straight up false.
Yeah.
Straight up false.
And that took me a really long time to realize, but it was like, I feel like we definitely got treated differently because our parents, first of all, weren't sealed in the temple. And then second, because our parents got divorced. It's like we were the black sheep of the ward. Like we were looked at differently for sure. And so that was really, really hard for me. And then another thing that was really hard for me when I was coming back, I work in the public sector. I see a lot of things every day and people do really horrible things. And that was very hard for me. Like, why is this supposedly loving and forgiving God letting these terrible things happen to people? And I think that kind of pushed my narrative of like, there is no God, because if there was a God, these things would not be happening. And I think it was actually on a podcast episode that somebody brought up that same issue that they had. And they said something along the lines of like, if God was not allowing these things to happen to people, he would be taking away agency, and he can't do that. And that was a really like eye-opening thing to me. And it was like, okay, like that makes sense. I can live with that. And I just have to know that the work that I do is helping people through those traumas. And that's enough for me to know that I am in a way helping people, and I can still be that little beacon of light in these lives of people that are going through horrible things. And I'm like, that's enough for me. And because they're right. Like God, he can't say that you can have agency in one thing, but also not allow these other things to happen, or there's no agency. And unfortunately, there's just people that don't use their agency correctly. And that's just something that we have to live with.
Mm-hmm.
So that really helped me a lot. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty much my story. I remember talking to my dad one day, and I don't know if you've ever watched the Joseph Smith's First Prayer. There is a part in it where Joseph is going into the grove, and it shows darkness following him and like chasing him basically through the grove. And even as he kneels down, it kind of pans up and it shows something standing in the trees. And I looked at my dad and I was like, that is how the last 3 weeks of my life have felt. I don't even think I was seeing color. Like everything was just dark. And I was anxious and uneasy and sick. And I have turned everything around. And I have seen so many blessings. And like even just how I feel on the day to day, like I recognize now, like I see a little something and I'm like, that's God. And I'm just so grateful. I don't know where my life would be if I hadn't been willing to reach out to my uncle and my dad. And obviously, I wish that I had never left the church. And I'm looking back and I'm like, why did I do that to myself? Like, I put myself in these horrible situations. And now I'm a traumatized adult that's trying to raise these kids that aren't traumatized. And I have to accept the fact that, like, I did this to myself. And that is a really hard pill to swallow. But I know that I have turned my life around, and it is like a complete 180. I got to volunteer at our temple open house. All of this was happening in probably April of 2025, and our temple opened in August of 2025. So I got to volunteer at the temple, and that was such a cool experience. I hadn't been in a temple since I was probably 12 or 13. And I'm like, this is so incredible. I got to see the celestial room for the first time. I had never seen that. I had never seen a sealing room. And I got to actually go in and do a tour of the temple. And I was like, this is so incredible. And I got to dedicate time to go to the temple and volunteer and show other people the joy that I had felt coming back. And I'm just like, it's so crazy how welcomed back I feel, despite people knowing that I was on anti-Mormon TikTok. And I have a ton of tattoos now. And I like, it just is like nothing has changed. I am still that little 8-year-old girl whose baptism they all probably attended. And now I have these 2 little kids that I get to raise in the gospel. And I am just beyond grateful that now they have my dad as a priesthood holder, because when I was younger, we didn't really have that solid like priesthood filling in our home. And I remember always thinking about like my aunt and uncle Brooke and Wyatt's house, and their house always felt so calm and comfortable and peaceful. And looking back, I'm like, it's because my uncle Wyatt had the priesthood and they had that solid temple ceiling. And that is why I always felt so much peace in their home. And I still do. I mean, you go to their house and it's just like, it's peace, it's comfort. And I just hope that one day I'm able to give my kids that. But I mean, right now they have my dad, and I'm so blessed to have a dad that is so willing to help me through all of this. My dad's the one that introduced me to the podcast, and I am so grateful for that. So
I love
it's
that.
just it's been marvelous. It's been incredible to watch myself change and to be able to recognize the changes and where the change is coming from. So,
It's so cool to see how a heart can change. Like in the Book of Mormon, talking about Alma the Younger, like I have experienced that in myself, and it is so just it's incredible to see how somebody's heart can change so much. And like looking at you, you glow. Like you're glowing. And it's so cool to see how the Savior's atonement can just completely transform somebody's life entirely.
and it can happen so quick too. Like,
Yep.
all it took was pretty much one step in the right direction, and it immediately was like, I don't want to live this life anymore. I have experienced the adversary very heavily, and if the adversary exists, then God exists, and I will never allow myself to go back to that side. I am devoted. I will raise my kids in the gospel. And like that's one thing I never wanted to do was even raise my kids in church regardless because I didn't want to like indoctrinate my kids, right? And now I'm like I feel so bad for my kids that are so behind the other kids in primary because I didn't teach them anything. And we've got wonderful primary leaders. I'm so grateful for them. I just feel guilty for not teaching them as early as I should have. And it's really scary because I'm not the only person in my family who has gone through something like this. Like I've talked to two other people in my family and I obviously won't share their stories because they're not my stories, but there's other people in my family that have experienced things like this and that's just really scary. And I pray that my kids never go through something like this, but at least at this point I know if they do, we have the tools to help them through it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had people on the podcast that have experienced similar things like that. And people in my family have also experienced things like that. And it's scary, but it's like God is greater than anything that the adversary can throw at us. And like when the adversary, like it can make us feel so out of control, but God is greater than any of that. And that just, that means everything.
It does. It makes me so happy every time people tell me that I am like glowing because I had had so many people over the last 11 years like tell me that I had kind of lost the light in my eyes. And I think I did. I went through so much in my teenage years and like that light was gone. And so much of it I put myself through. And obviously I regret that, but it just makes me so happy when people tell me that I have so much light because I'm like, that's God there. I could not have this light back in my eyes without the gospel and without the incredible missionaries that I'm so grateful they were so willing to serve. And most of them were from Utah, so I'm like they're from right next door and they're still so happy to be here in this tiny little town serving and they changed my life and I am so grateful for them. And I'm so grateful for the gospel and people acting like I never left. Like it's very humbling to see the atonement working. And I'm just very grateful for it. So,
Love it so much. Well, your story is so amazing. Like you are just, you embody the Comeback podcast. Like you are just, I love the podcast because it is like we're not debating like church history topics. Like sure, we've had a couple episodes where we talk about church history topics, but at the end of the day, the thing that really shines with the podcast is that the Savior's transformative power in our lives and having a relationship with our Heavenly Father is what matters most. Like you said, you had spent all this time on, you know, Ex-Mormon Reddit and Ex-Mormon TikTok, and there's all these things that they're saying. But at the end of the day, when you are in a place in your life where you're reaching for the Savior, and it's like all of those things are just background noise.
people are so loud about their opinions. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's fine. I just don't care. I have experienced the gospel and I will never go back again. You can have all the opinions you want. I don't care. It will roll off my shoulders for the rest of my life. There's a quote that says, like, a person with an experience is never at the mercy of a person with an opinion or something like that. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yes.
yep,
I love that.
precisely.
Yep.
Because I just don't care. I
Mhm.
like, you can make fun of me all you want to. You can try to talk me out of it all you want to. I just don't care. You will never catch me bad mouthing the church ever. You will never catch me leaving the church again. Like I'm here and I'm here to stay. So
I love it. I love it so much. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Your story is
thank you.
amazing and so beautiful. And I am so grateful that it's like God totally just like made our paths cross. And
I know I'm so excited. I was so stoked when I saw you message me. I was like, there is no way. I was like fangirling.
it's just like, I feel like God, the way that he like orchestrates who we have on the podcast and when we have them on and all of that, there's just no accidents and he has his hand in it. And so like your story is so beautiful and it's so needed for this time. And so thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Surf Clothing is one of our favorite brands. They have been supporting us since the very beginning. We love them so much. I think one of the things that I like about Surf so much is that my husband is literally obsessed, and I brought him in here to share his experience with Surf Clothing. So Jesse, tell us.
I love Surf Clothing. This is the best shirt that I've ever owned for church and professional purposes. It's got four-way stretch, which makes it really nice because not all the time I'm at my desk. Oftentimes I'm moving and out and about. So it's really nice to have a flexible shirt that moves with me. I know that it's got a mesh collar that I love. I think the purpose of that is really to prevent stains, but it's also super comfortable. It's way more comfortable around my neck. You know, if I'm at church or in business meetings with a tie or whether I don't have a tie, it's really comfortable. It's got arm vents, which I love because I'm kind of a bigger fella. It helps me so that I can be a bit breathable, and I love it.
And also, you can get 15% off a shirt from Serve by using the code COMEBACK.
A lot of people have asked us how they can support the podcast, and we have created a Comeback Podcast merch line on our website, www.comebackpodcast.org. All of the money made from the merch goes right back into the podcast. So if you are interested in supporting the podcast and you want to purchase some merch, we would love it. Check it out. Thank you so much for being a supporter of the Comeback Podcast and listening to our episodes. It would mean so much to us if you would like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps other people be able to find us, and we want to share this message to everyone.